Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the HPC. This is their card number CX6A is this card number. It says it right here. Let's pull it out of the packaging and take a closer look at it. We'll do as deep of a dive into this card as possible, or at least as deep as I can take you. Let's see if we can get the camera to focus on that. I'll just hold it there. You can pause the video if you want to study it, but there are photos linked down below. But again, just pause this video if you want to study it. Now, the HPC code cards come with their Blitz machine. It also comes with their PCH, their punch machine. It's a different card, naturally. But nonetheless, the code cards are what govern the entire platform of their variable X and Y and Z axis. Well, X and Y. You can move that carriage for the spacing. You can move it for depth. So let's just say 2-axis. And the Blitz is really a key originator. It's an originating machine, meaning you're going to create an original key blank using that. Or, maybe not from the factory, but we'll call it an original key blank. And the reason to do that is because you need to cut a key by its bitting, or the code, I suppose, but the bitting. What are the depths of the cuts? What are the order of those depths of the cuts? And then you're going to duplicate that on your Blitz machine. You probably wouldn't want to use the Blitz machine to then duplicate keys. You're going to want to take it to a manual or an automatic or a semi-automatic. Key duplicator is probably how you would do that. But when you start with one key blank, you'll want to cut that on your Blitz. You're going to want to make sure it's exactly the right size that you like, meaning every rotation of your X and Y axis is going to, inherently change how far over or how deep or shallow the unit is cutting. And once you get that original key blank, once you get that key blank originated exactly the way you want, take it to your duplicator at that point. And backing up, the reason you want to do that is because you're originating a system from scratch. You have a SPF, or a standard progression system. Originating a system meaning you've got your standard progression format, or you have your biddings already detailed, and you need to create your change keys, your master key, your grandmaster key, etc. Whatever keys you need to create, your selective master keys, your SKDs, your changes under the grand only, whatever it might be. And this client, who is a door distributor in the upper Midwest, is doing exactly that. And they've got a Blitz, and they don't use it very often, nor do they sell Corb Russ very often. But they're about to. They're doing a large job, and they're going to do all the key work in-house, which is not unusual for a lot of contract hardware dealers. It's also not unusual for them to just let the factory do it, because it is time, obviously. And then, it's with the client, there's more to it. And here's what I mean. This card is full of lots of information. In fact, it's full of practically everything you need to know about doing this job. There is one thing I can think of that is not on here, and it's no fault of HPC's. But the conversation with the client went, oh, you've got a Blitz machine. You're doing a Corb Russ job. Okay, the next step was to determine, was it System 70, was it pre-System 70, and what class was it? The client was able to basically tell me that they were doing just a typical, I think it was just a Corb Russ L4 keyway. Okay, so really garden variety material. But the next, and I said, so you obviously own a Blitz machine. He says, yes, I've not used it for 10 years, but I have it. Okay, good. The next question, because I'm familiar with the process, is what cutter do you have? And that cutter information is also on here, and it's also in the manual for the Blitz. Pardon me. The cutter that you need to cut the system, once you determine which card you need, can be pulled out of the manual, or it can be pulled off the card. It can also be pulled off the HPC DSD, their depth and spacing data list. So I first pulled that up and was able to find the section for what the client was working on, and it told me the number of the card. It also told me the cutting wheel that was required. Also, in the Corb Russ cylinder manual, it also tells you what HPC card to use. I don't know if it tells you the code, but it tells you the card, so I was able to triangulate that information. So I said to the client, are you sure you've got the right cutter? That CW90MC is the one that you're going to need. He says, I have no idea, because it could come with another cutter. And I don't know if the 90MC is the standard cutter. I don't remember if it's that or the 14MC. I have both, so I don't remember which one came in the box. How that cutter is going to cut is the difference between it working correctly, the way it was engineered to, pretty much, and it not working correctly, or not working at all. Working correctly, not working correctly, and you compensate, or just not working at all. You've got to have the right cutter in there. The way that the manufacturer originally engineered the system, you have to adhere to the degree of the cut and what the treatment is on the bottom of the cut and how wide that dimension is as well. The client put me on hold for at least 5 minutes, and he came back in a huff and he says, oh, I had to remove the wheel. I had to remove the nut because it is I couldn't see the number on the wheel that was installed on the machine. And I said, yeah, and you probably learned it's a reverse thread as well. So I know that I learned that the hard way by trying to remove it and realizing I'm tightening it, and I actually destroyed the wrench the first time I did this, when I was 22 years old. Ruined the box wrench that came with it, replaced it, never made that mistake again. It's a reverse thread. He didn't comment about that, so anyway, he was able to say, I've got the CW90MC. But the point is now that once he gets this card from us, once this shipment arrives, he's going to be able to originate everything. So let's go over this card right now. So up here in the upper corner, that's your depths and your spaces. So if you've got a key in your hand, you'll know, think of any key that you want that has the bitting on the top of the key, the code, the numbers that it's cut to. It could be any numbers. Well, that is the depth of the cut. But the way that you measure depths is by holding the key blank and then measuring the root depth, the bottom of the cut to the bottom of the blank. Okay? That value is what you're seeing here, what's left over. That's the depth cut that's on here. Oh, I had it. So what you're seeing there is the root cut. Then your spacing is there as well. Now, why is all this data important? It really isn't. It's the job of it is important, but it's not really important to you at this moment because it's the job of the card to make you not have to worry about that stuff. You could, with this data, take a key blank, put it in your vise, and then you could file it by hand. If you had a caliper and a file, a pear-shaped file is the one that's used. It looks like a teardrop. Teardrop-shaped file is the one typically used. So that data is on here. Do you need to know it? Probably not. Is it nice to know that the data is there? Yes, that's why it's there. Okay. Then as we move over, it also tells you what jaw you have to have in your machine. There are different jaws for the Blitz. This will tell you the jaw number. As you look to the right of that, you've got your cutter, CW90MC. Below that it says direct digit. That just means that you're dealing with direct codes. Codes, if available, are listed bow to tip on head of key. So if your key has numbers on it, the way that Corb Russ does their system is it's from the bow of the key blank, from the shoulder to the center of that first cut, and then all the way towards the tip. If you're familiar with small format, you know that it's opposite. They go from tip to bow. That relates to also the jaw and the cutting wheel that you would have. Now, this also tells us in the keyways below it, 59 series, 60, 70, D, H, and L series. And I had said earlier we're doing an L4 keyway. So in an L4 keyway, all I really had to confirm is that we were dealing with System 70 or pre-System 70. System 70 is the shift that Corbin went through when they went from a two-step system to a one-step system. So if it's System 70 after the year 1970, it'll be a single-step system where the cuts are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that. Or it's 0. Well, I'm looking right at it. So it's cuts 1 through 6 is what it is. So you've got those 6 depth possibilities, and it goes in single increments. You can have a master key with the 2 cut on it and a change key with a 1 or a 3 on it. That's permissible because it's single step. And that is System 70. So I knew it was System 70. And at that point, I was able to determine which code card he needed by either the Corb Russ manual again or the depth and spacing data. To look further at the code card, I just want to exhaust all the information that's on here, and then we'll move on. Tells us the keyways, series and restricted. There's going to be restricted key blanks in that series, and this cutter will likely work for those. Below and to the right, obviously you've got a diagram of that. You've got your 0.25 inch, that's the shoulder to the center of the first cut, and then it's 0.156 center to center of every cut after that. Below that, it tells you that it's the DSD 614. I'm going to show you where to find the DSD chart, the depth and spacing data. Corb Russ has a max of 4, so you can't have a 1 and a 6 cut together or next to each other. And let's look further. A max of 4, and that's progression step equals 1. It's a single step. And then some notes. There's notes on there if anything applies. Note, use card CX5 for System 70X class and those other keyways, 57, 67, 77 series, plus 97, 99, AR, BL, and BR keyways. Note, use card CX7 for System 70K and H series keyways. Okay. So, then over here, they're giving you the increment between cuts. It looks like it's 0.028, and then the center-to-center spacing. So 156, that's the center-to-center between the first and second, second and third and fourth, all the way down. And then they're saying the difference between a 1 cut and a 2 cut is 0.028 inch. Okay, that exhausts everything on the card. This is obviously where you line up your gauges on your machine. Okay. So in those notes, they're talking about X class. They're talking about 59 series and all this stuff. If you're not from, and this locksmith was, this door and hardware distributor was not familiar with Corb Russ at all. I am familiar with Corb Russ from a locksmithing perspective because I've studied it at length. I wrote an article on their master ring cylinder, and if I don't forget, I'll show you a link to it. And it forced me to read that cylinder manual multiple times. So all these different classes, which I'll show you where the source document is a result of 150 years of evolution of P.F. Corbin, Russell and Irwin, Corbin, Russwin, Corbin and Russwin, Emhart, and other hangers-on of other names that were included in there. They're restricted stuff. The document that I'm going to show you a link to is the most valuable single document from a single manufacturer that exists in terms of here's our stuff, here's the history of our stuff, here's everything I can possibly tell you about our stuff, and its only shortcoming is the fact that it's only valid up to maybe the year 2000. There's current stuff that's in their restricted material that isn't included in that conversation. But if you want to know everything about the history of those manufacturers' keying systems, it's the governing document, and that's how we can determine what class you're working with. So let's switch to the screen view and let's dive into that source document. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Moving on with our video, let's take a look first at the extended description. There's not much here to see at all, so let's just look at the photographs that we have linked to. Okay, again, you can study that. A little bit easier to see, but more static. A close-up of the card top to bottom. Looks like a bunch of gobbledygook. If you're only using it to originate a key and you just don't want to know the rest, that's fine. But if you pursue deeper depths of knowledge in locksmithing, you realize how brilliant HPC is to include all that here. A middle section, so to speak. And the reason that you're using this card is right here. Okay, now let's look at the manufacturer's page here, depth and spacing data is here. By number, by manufacturer. If you recall, there was a depth and spacing value on here. I don't remember where it is. You're probably yelling right now saying, it's there, it's there. I don't see it. Okay, I am really not seeing it. Let's pause this video. Yes, of course, it's right here, DSD614, DSD614. So from the manufacturer's page, we'll pull up DSD by number, then do a Control F on your keyboard for 614, and you will find it eventually. The number 614, unfortunately, comes up 10 times, and I think I just skipped past it. I did. Corbin 70, Corbin Z class, System 70. IC and conventional core will be the same card. Your cutter is a CW90MC, that's your CX6A. Your card number if it's a punch. This is your spacing. All of this is important. If you were to cut a key with a file, again, a file and a caliper, you would technically be able to do it based on this information. Now, that's handy to know, but again, that is on your, that's on the card. Okay, so let's move on. We've pointed out where the depth and spacing data is. You're probably never going to refer to that, but it's a very handy document that gives you, 200 pages worth of this material. So let's look at the Corbin Russ cylinder manual. So what we'll do is we will find the manufacturer's link in our site. From anywhere in the page, you'll look for the word manufacturers, which right now it's down right of center at the bottom. And then do a Control F or find function on your keyboard for Corbin. And you'll find Corbin Russ. You'll click on that. Then the cylinder manual is right here. Corbin Russ Cylinder Manual, 2016. Now this is 100 plus pages of the history as I had described earlier. As you scroll through, they're going to literally begin with a history of these different key classes and key systems. So we're doing a Z class, we know that. Because it's an L series keyway, it's an L4. That tells us it's a Z class. Well, that's important to know because there's a depth and spacing data chart that's in this manual. But in the beginning of the catalog is where you're going to be able to investigate the history or the evolution of all this material. Okay, so very handy document. If you work within Corbin Russ, you're going to want to read this front to back, and then you're going to want to cherry pick constantly the other things that you're going to be needing to focus on. So as I scroll through, they start going through these different keyways. And we know that we're doing Z class, and I'm looking for an L keyway. I may have passed over it, or it may not be here. H. Let's take a look here. Oh, here we go. I passed over it. So here's your stock L4 keyway Z-class biddings, page 62, 63, and 64. So let's try that. 62. So here we go. We know we're doing System 70 because it's single step, meaning the locks were ordered in the year 2021. So from the factory, that's going to be single step. And this is literally everything we need to know. L1 through L4, Z and DH class, System 70. These are the keyways that this code card, I said that they mentioned that there, and there it is. So all the same data that is on your card, well, this is where HPC is getting it from. So really handy again. the point of showing you this document is to say you may be content to have the right card and leave the rest up to the mystery of the cosmos. Or you might say, no, I want to fully understand to the best of my ability everything Corbin and Russwin related, and this would be the document to do so. They talk about master ring, they talk about interchangeable core, they talk about their restricted keyway. I have some examples of this in my lock collection. It's not been made for a couple of decades, but an ingenious way of permitting a high security sort of system with interlocking pins. Just really fascinating. Okay, so again, hotel cylinders, Brinks function cylinders are described in here. Their construction keying is described in here, and everything that's ever been important. And again, the only thing that this is lacking is the developments of their high security platforms over the last 20 years or so. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. In conclusion, if we're able to help you determine which card you need, let us know. It's very likely that I may not have the answer memorized, and it's very likely that I'll have to research it, and it's very likely I'll have to contact HPC. But the takeaway from contacting HPC is that they're always responsive. Those folks are always very helpful. And in fact, I find that to be a trait not only with manufacturers of locksmithing related tools and supplies. It's not only HPC that has great technical support. Other manufacturers do as well that are related in the locksmithing industry. But locksmiths in general are a helpful group of people, that's for sure. Learning about locksmithing is only thoroughly effective when you invest the time, when you have human resources to draw on, people that you've networked within the locksmithing community. You may want to check out ALOA, ALOA.org. That's the National Organization for Locksmiths, and membership there is very much recommended. The access to education that you get outside of on-the-job training is something that you can't get from any other source. Great group of people there, and I'm very happy to, very fortunate to be a part of the community. Any questions on the CX6A? I keep saying it wrong. CX6A, you can't see it. Code card or any other HPC product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.